morning, everyone. Welcome to today's training. Today's the first of a series of sessions that we will be looking at the whole JET analytics environment. First of all, before we begin, I'd just like to say on behalf of our Managing Director, Mr. Hector Negron, and the other senior management staff, and as a matter of fact, the entire staff, we want to say, boy, we really appreciate you spending the time to participate in these webinars. We know that you could have been spending your time doing other things, but you chose to spend the time with us. And for that, we are truly grateful. We're truly thankful. Whenever I conduct the webinars, I always like to say we're going to have fun. Whenever I make presentations, I don't like to come across as boring or or make the topic seem as if it's laborious. So it's going to be very data centered as we're going on in the respective sessions as we go in session after in session, and it might get a little bit more involved, but it will not be boring. As a matter of fact, I think it will be very exciting. So before I begin, I just want to share my screen. And I'm just going to ask if someone could just confirm if you're able to see my screen. Can I just get a quick confirmation if you're all able to see my screen? Macarena? Gabriel? Okay, see the chat. Beautiful. Thanks, Joshua. Appreciate it.
We can see now, Stephen. Sorry.
All right, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so JET analytics. It's one of the topics that I really love because I'm what do you call it, a data person, and I believe this is an ideal product for those who want to analyze their data from a business intelligence or strategic perspective, or if you want to have the ability to look at data from a very high level and actually drill down to the specifics. This indeed is a very good tool. So before I begin, just one slide on the JET suite of products. The JET suite of products are specifically made for the entire Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem. And as we have here in the slide, that it delivers total data access and control through a complete suite of integrated products. So you can make decisions at the speed of business. So integrated products because the particular tool that we'll be using, for example, with JET Analytics, as it is with many other JET products, which include like the regular JET reports or JET budgets, they have the ability to link with many databases. So many different types of database management systems. Let me get more specific. So therefore, if you want to look at your data, you can not only choose to look at the data within your organization, within the context of the organization itself, but if you had external data, more specific, maybe environment data, data relating to the industry, etc., as long as that data is what is called ODBC compliant or uses even a standard SQL database, which is one of the more popular databases, the MSSQL databases. Once you can therefore connect to these data sources, then you have the ability to seamlessly at the back end integrate a lot of these software, these data sources. And using various tools, you're able to combine and therefore see your organization's data within the context of not only the data itself, but maybe within the industry or even within the context of the wider environment. So you're therefore able to make decisions at what is called the speed of business without the need for a lot of technical resources or data expertise. You'd have to be employing a lot of persons who are specialists in various areas, because it has a nice interface, a very user-friendly interface that allows you to integrate with a lot of these data sources. So if we look at this diagram here, what we're saying here is that the objective, therefore, of JET products, and in particular, the JET analytics, is that you're able to do analysis rather. You're able to report. You're therefore also able to use budget. And with all of that, you therefore have this collaborative experience across your environment or across the industry. So we have therefore answered, or we're going to finally just answer then, why JET? Why any of the JET products, and in particular JET analytics? Well, there's one which is key, which is the low total cost of ownership. And that's because the JET reports are mainly built on the Excel framework. And because they're built on the Excel framework, we're talking about, therefore, a much lower learning curve. So most of the reports are actually built in Excel. So therefore, you're able to use the Excel tool. And in most organizations, basically over 90% of the members in the organization would be Excel proficient. Another reason why using the JET tools is that JET offers over 80 pre-built sets of JET reports. So these reports were built specifically for the Dynamics suite of products, whether you're using D365 Business Central or Dynamics GP or D365 for finance and operations. Those of you who may be familiar with the finance and operations, this used to be Microsoft's flagship ERP product, AX, coming from Axapta days. So therefore, you won't need to have anyone in the organization who is an expert in designing many of these reports. A lot of these reports, as we said, over 80 of the reports are standard reports. And because they are standard pre-built reports, you're able to literally just plug them in and connect to your system and run these reports. Another reason for using the JET products, as we said, is that it's able to integrate with other ODBC. ODBC is just an acronym called Object Database Connectivity. So it's really a protocol, a standard, which allows various database systems to be able to connect and to speak with each other. And therefore, because the JET product is ODBC compliant, you're not only able to use SQL, but also MySQL, even regular Excel tables or Excel files or worksheets or workbooks that you want to bring in to do analysis, and even a simple file like a text file. Also with the JET products, and again, whether if it is JET reports or JET analytics, you can basically automate the printing and emailing of many of these reports. And a lot of the reports are what is called web-based dashboards. And these dashboards you can either share internally within the organization, or if there are persons outside the organization, as long as they're able to remotely gain access to your web server, then they are able to utilize these web-based dashboards. And finally, another reason why justifying these JET products is that it has a good inbuilt security protocols, in that you are able, for instance, to set permissions on various reports. I'll give you an example. You may have a finance department, and for the finance department, you may have some reports that only certain members within the finance department should have access to. You therefore are able to save these reports in a repository within the JET analytics or JET reporting framework. And then from these reports, you'll find that, or you can set the permission levels and the level of access for users. For example, you can set it or configure these reports that certain users are able to only read the reports without actually updating the report. Or you can give users permission so that they can not only read, but also update the reports with the latest data. Or thirdly, there's another permission level that you can give, which allows for individuals to not only be able to read the reports or update the reports, but also they can actually make changes to the reports. So it really has a good set of functionality, which allows you to control permissions and access. And as I end this particular slide, I will say that one of the cool features of this product is that you can actually schedule reports, that reports get emailed automatically to certain individuals. So I'll give an example. If you have a report that you want a certain group of individuals, whether inside or outside of the organization, to be able to get these reports, you can actually schedule the reports, and the reports are updated first. And after being updated in the JET environment automatically, then they get emailed to the respective recipients. So therefore, it allows you to automate both the generation and emailing of the reports, and therefore not having the need of having an individual utilizing the time to actually run the reports, attach them in an email, and send them out. So therefore, the JET suite of products are able to integrate with your typical SMTP emailing system. So what generally is the approach with Gen Analytics? So here we have a slide with basically 3 diagrams. If you look at data, remember we move from raw data to information. So there is a level that looks at just the raw data, which might be spread across one single or many different tables or many different databases in many different servers. So once you are able to have access to, the server, you are able to plug into the database and pull the data. So this is the connecting phase. But now that you are able to connect to the raw data, there is now what is called the data warehousing, which is now the next level. So in moving from the actual raw data, you would expect that as you move into data warehousing, some of the key things that you would concentrate on include, one, ensuring that you only have relevant data, which is necessary. Because if you really consider it, if you want to bring in, let's think it through. If you want to bring in data from many different data sources, you don't want to be bringing in data which is irrelevant. And because it's going to end up with you having a database with a lot of data, and most of which probably, while though it's good data, it's not relevant data for you. Also, you'd expect that in the data warehousing phase, that not only would you be looking at relevant data, but also you'll be expected to do some amount of data cleansing. One of the examples that I like to use when it comes to data cleansing is to look at 2 countries, let us say the US and the UK. If I were to give you a date and I said 2/1/2022, you'll find in one context, in an American context, that date would be the 1st of February 2022. But in another context, i.e. across Europe and especially in the UK, that date would actually be seen as the 2nd of January, 2022. So the question is, what date is it? So you do expect that if you're going to be bringing in data into what is called a data warehouse, so the data warehouse now becomes a data repository where you have data which is not only relevant, but also structured, properly structured. Because at the phase of looking at raw data, this was just data, all unordered, all unsorted. But now moving into the data warehouse, you are now able to organize your data. You can organize your data based on the subject. You can organize your data based on the sources of the data, etc. Right? But the key thing to note is that with the data warehouse, yes, you're able to therefore organize your data. And then from you are able to organize your data into a data warehouse. You now come to the next level, which is now called optimized data. And what really is optimized data? This is data that is now organized in what is called cubes. So let's give an example. You may have data relating to production, you may have data related to finance, you may have data related to operations, etc. So why would persons within the operations of your organization need to be looking at financial data? Good. All that data might end up to be irrelevant. So therefore, by you optimizing your data and creating cubes, you're able to create cubes or you're able to create cubes of relevant data. So you might be able to create data relating just to finance, and therefore only the finance individuals or the persons who need financial data will have access to the finance cubes. Also, we will introduce a concept known as dimensionality. And the best way that I can explain dimensionality is by way of an example, because I could just simply say a dimension provides a perspective. Good. So you remember the days of the Rubik's Cube, when you had to look at patterns and then create the cube. And the idea behind dimensionality, it allows you to look at data from many different perspectives. So for instance, if you want to do an analysis of sales, you might be able to look at it, you might be able to analyze your sales from the dimension of the various stores. Or you might want to analyze that same data from the dimension of employees. So therefore you're able to see the productivity of each employee as against each store. You might want to look at the total sales in relation to the cost of sales. So therefore you're able to analyze that data to see which product is providing the highest margin for your organization. So therefore that really is the idea of dimensionality, in that the JET analytics allows you to use either the standard cubes and dimensions which are provided to you, or you can actually add to those cubes, or you can actually create your own cubes and or dimensions. So as we are ready to dive into the JET analytics, here's another graph that can help to solidify what we've been seeing or what we've been discussing so far. So if you look to your left, what we're saying here is that all of your database or your data sources Whether you're using legacy database systems or you're using maybe like CRM system or any other dynamics databases. Example here, we just chose 3 SQL databases. What we're saying here is that your databases get integrated by use of what is called the Jet Data Manager. So I'll be opening the Jet Data Manager as we start the demo to show you that it is the Jet Data Manager that now integrates all your data sources. And from your Jet Data Manager, where you're able to select your data sources, you're now able to do the first set of cleaning, moving your data, right, from its data sources into what is called the staging database. So therefore, there's a first level of cleaning and data selection that is done at the staging database level. And then once you have selected your data at the staging database level, you can now move to the next level, which is the creating of what is called the Jet Data Warehouse. And in using the Jet Data Warehouse, the Jet Data Warehouse is integrated with your Jet analysis service. So it therefore means that for the Jet analytics to work, you will have to install in your environment not only the regular SQL Server instance, but you will also, while installing the SQL Server instance, you will also have to include the SQL analysis services. All right. And now once you have the SQL service, the Jet analysis service will now integrate with your Microsoft analysis, SQL analysis services, and then allows you to publish these various cubes. So therefore, when you're publishing the cubes, these cubes will now become available to your front-end user interface tools. That is whether you'll be using Excel or whether you're going to be using Power BI or whether you're going to be using the Office 365, Excel Online, etc. Or if you want to integrate with a regular Jet reports that come with Excel. And I hasten to add that in these 80-odd reports, over 80 reports, which are standard and are available to you, your license, once you purchase these products, they allow you to automatically modify and customize these 80-odd reports. So you don't have to wonder if there's something that you're going to have to pay, etc., in order to modify these reports, or maybe the report might be giving you information that in your environment you don't really do the calculations the specific way that the report portrays the data, all formulas, etc., including even the measures that we, in one of our sessions, I will show you that even the various measures that you do your calculations, maybe for your cost of goods sold, your average turnover, etc. The formulas are standard given for you, but you can actually customize those formulas. Good. So this is an example of some of the reports that are available to you, graphical reports, etc., that are standard, that come standard with Jet Analytics. So I'm just quickly browsing through some of them, so you're able to see, for example, a sales dashboard. Again, these reports, or these dashboards rather, these dashboard reports are customizable. You can actually make changes to them. Here we see sales by customer live. So you are able to set, for example, how regularly should your data be refreshed. And by you configuring how regularly your data is refreshed, that refresh will automatically show on your reports that you have opened on your desktop, the various dashboards, etc. And here we have another set of dashboard reports looking at inventory value, etc. Using the slicer. So all of this will be familiar to you because these objects are easily you easily know them because you'd have been familiar with Excel. So that's the broad overview of the product. And today we're going to start by just looking at the actual tool itself. Now, I'm in a virtual environment, so I need to know, are you still seeing my screen? Can I just get an acknowledgement if you're still able to see the screen? This is a...
Yeah, we can see the screen.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much, Gabo. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay, so here I have opened or set up a virtual machine. You will notice that one of the icons that I have here is the Jet Data Manager. Good. So going back to one of the previous slides, you would have heard me say that the Jet Data Manager, that is the environment that is used now to bring all my data sources together, right? My various data sources, as long as from my server, I'm able to connect whether by over HTTP, etc., or internal to the organization or external. Once there's a connectivity and there's some once there's some mode of connectivity, and once the databases that you want to connect to are ODBC compliant, then there are no issues. You should be able to connect. So in opening up the Jet Data Manager, here on screen, there are a couple of things that I want to show you. Let me just open my screen some more here. Good. So this is a typical opening screen in the Jet Data Manager server. So here we have the title. Now you'll notice that if I should click the file routine or file menu option rather, and then go to Cube Store. This is one of the first things you need to understand just what this is. The team from Jet, and Jet is actually owned now by a company called Insight Software. They have a menu option for you here called Cube Store. So what is the Cube Store? The Cube Store allows you to connect to the Jet repository, and you'll get a listing of all the projects which are available for you to download. So what is a project? A project is the data environment with a collection of reports that are available for you to download to use automatically. Good. So based on your license, when you connect, what you will see is a listing of all the available projects for your specific environment. You may remember that I said that although the Jet Analytics can connect to many different databases and data sources, Jet, however, has made specific or developed specific projects that you can download. Good. And when you download those projects, you will get access to many pre-built and pre-configured data warehouse tables, cubes, dimensions, measures, calculations, etc. As we will see in subsequent sessions, webinar sessions, you will see that you have access to a lot of these dimensions, which and cubes and measures, which are made available for you to use right out of the box into your environment. So because of my license, I'm actually seeing this list here. But depending on your license, you'll only see the projects which are available to you for download. And once you select it and then you click download, then you will get access to the project. It will automatically be installed on your environment. So the next obvious question, therefore, is this: what if there is an upgrade? Because JET is always adding new reports, new calculations, etc., because they continuously interact with customers to find out what additional features or functionality that they would require. Would that increased functionality be available to you? And the answer is yes, because as you'll notice here, for example, I'm seeing here one called GP version 5. So this means that if I were to download this project is for the Great Plains environment, and right now they're at version 5. But they will send you a notice to actually say that they have improved on the product, added additional functionality, etc. And all you need to do is to go to the Cube store and download. And when you download, the application will ask if you want to overwrite the existing application or to create a new application. And the next obvious question would be, is that a cost? And the answer is no. Once you have paid for that license, the license covers all improvements, new versions, developments, additives, etc., or additions rather, various modules. So the Cube store is very important. So I'm not going to download a Cube, a project, because I've already downloaded a project. So I'm going to actually now open one of the projects which has been downloaded. Oops. I am seeing a message here. It says that, okay, I may have a space issue. All right, just give me 1 second. Let me try something here. 1 second. I know I was okay up to yesterday. Let's see if I can just delete a couple files here. Just give me 1 second. Let me. If I can delete the things here. Okay. See if I can. Oh. All right, let me just create some space here on this machine. My apologies about that, because I was fine up to yesterday when I tested everything. Let me. Just going to delete everything. All right, let's see if this will work now. Okay, my apologies on that. This isn't my virtual environment, and I know that I was fine with space yesterday, but as it is when you're a developer, you're always okay. So this might look a little bit confusing in that you're going to be saying, wow, what's this? Don't worry. Good. This is a typical panel. Good. When you open a project, So this project has a lot of pre-built tables, pre-built views, has default security setups. It has the various measures, dimensions, etc., because this would have been developed for you already by Jet. So you may remember the file that the project that we downloaded and we renamed it. I called it GP for training. Now, I'm going to be showing you on a step-by-step basis the things that you have to be cognizant of. And once you follow it on a step-by-step basis, then all of this will become very easy. So I'm actually going to close this node. So here I am now in what is called the Solution Explorer. So in the Solution Explorer, I'm able to see all nodes related to this particular project. I'm able to see the node that relates to the data warehouse. I'm able to see the node that relates to what is called business units and even cubes, etc. So here we have a business unit which has already been set up. Good. Now, why am I starting at business unit? Let's think again. You may remember when we were going through the PowerPoint slides, good, we told you that in order to move from just raw data to information, the starting point is you getting your raw data. Good. So the question is, how do you connect to your data sources for your raw data so that you can bring it into Jet Analytics and then do the various data cleansing, etc., so that this transformed data, this transformed data, which would have been extracted and then transformed, and you're now able to load. How do you connect? And you connect to all these data sources by way of a business unit. Good. So the business unit, good, has also other nodes. And if you'll notice here, under the data source business node, there are two database connections which have been set up. Now, how do you set up a database connection? Well, you would simply right-click, and then you'd go to data source, or what you'd call adapter data source. Now, what's the difference between the two? The adapter data source, if you think of a record pointer or what is called a data adapter, for those of you who are software programmers, it is the protocols or the suite of commands that allow you to move a record pointer across data. In other words, going to the first record, scrolling forward, scrolling backwards, or allowing you the ability to do what is called CRUD operations. CRUD is the acronym for create, read, update, delete. Now, if we see the word create, we should say, now, hold on a minute, Steve. Are you saying to me that if I should use this product, the fact that it allows for standard CRUD operations, are you saying that when I connect to my source databases, that I might be able to update my GP database or my D365, 365 Business Central or my AX database from here? The answer is no. Good. You can only read data from underlying data sources. And when you read that data, good, if you want to write any SQL scripts to transform the data or to make changes for the data, then it can be done, but it will be done for only the data that is in your project, the data that would have been brought over from your project. Good. So you don't have to worry if by using this tool, if it means that you will now be adding data, or you will have the ability to add data to your underlying database. The answer to that is no. So then, how then does the business unit, and in particular the data source node, interact and integrate? Well, once you create a data source connectivity to a data source, good, what happens is that the system, based on the rules, or the product based on the rules that you will add to the system, it will actually import data from your underlying database into its own database. Good. So it will not be using or manipulating the data in your underlying data source, and therefore having an impact on your overall system performance. So it is very possible that you can install the Jet Analytics on a separate server from the server which has your databases, because all it will do is, based on the schedule that you would have set to pull data, and let me pause here and say that even in the pulling of data, you can actually so structure or configure the Jet Analytics where when it pulls data, it actually pulls the entire data set, or the entire set of data from your databases, or you can actually say that you only want new data, or data that would have been edited in your underlying database. So the choice is there for you, because it could impact on performance if every time, let's give a scenario. Let us say you wanted your salespersons to get sales performance data maybe every half an hour. You therefore, if they were to use this tool, you would not want them to be running updates where millions of records are being pulled from your data every 30 minutes, right? It will impact, more than likely, it will impact on the performance of your database, and then your users will start complaining. You can actually configure the updates that the Jet Analytics only pulls data that have been added since the last data pull, or data which has been modified since the last data pull. Good. And in one of our sessions, I'll show you how to do that. So if you are going to add, for instance, what is called an adapted data source, you'll notice you're only limited to NAV, or NAV is also the same as 365 Business Central. So NAV, AX, CRM, GP, etc., or even Salesforce. So by you using the adapted data sources, what will happen is that when it connects to your underlying databases, it will know, or it will, because it's pre-configured, the system will know what relevant tables need to be pulled automatically from your AX environment, your GP environment, your Business Central environment. If, however, you want to add a data source which is not related to any of these three data protocols, you can actually just go to a regular data source, and then you can select whether, if you just want to add a SQL database, ODBC, an Excel database, or a text file, or multiple text files. So you have many options open to you. So let's look at GP. Good. I'm going to first look at the GP data adapter, which was already pre-built and pre-configured by Jet, the team from Jet. So if I were to right click, and you notice it says here, edit the dynamic GP adapter, which means that this particular data is based on the adapter rather than just a generic database. So if I should right click and open, what I have here is a screen which shows me how my data, how I connect rather to my underlying database. So here I would give the name of the server where my database is and what kind of authentication, whether if I'm going to be using Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication or Active Directory, etc. So this is pretty standard, the screen that you would use to connect to an underlying database. And also, when you connect, when you identify the database and your authentication method, you can therefore select the various types of databases that you'd like to connect to. Here I just chose to connect to the Dynamics database. And then I can click and test the connection. And once the connection is tested, okay. And if I were to hit okay, but I'm not going to hit okay because it was done already. What happens next is that GP goes and copies all the various tables that would be necessary for the project, this particular project. And even though I'm saying GP, the concept is still the same, right? The concept is still the same, whether you're using 365 Business Central or 365 AX or GP, etc. Good. So by me importing the project from JET, the JET project automatically pulled, in this case, all the GP tables necessary for the GL, which is a general ledger tables. Those of you who are familiar with GP would recognize some of these numbers. IV are inventory related tables. POP, purchase order processing tables, etc. SOP, all these tables, sales order processing. So if I were to choose one of these tables, for instance, POP 30310, which I believe has to do with current purchase orders. So what the project has done is that it has gone through and already selected the necessary tables and fields to build the report. Now the question is, can you go ahead and make changes? And yes, the answer is yes, because what I did here in expanding the node in what is called the data selection, these are all the tables. Well, based on the database that I've connected to, the tables and the fields which are available for me to use. So the system would have now copied all of these tables and done already some data transformation to bring it to what is called the staging database. Good. So I'm going to stop right here at this point because we've done quite a bit already, because I think it was necessary for us to first get a good understanding of the environment and how JET Analytics works. And then having that good understanding how JET Analytics works, we can now dive right into the JET Data Manager. So to just quickly recap, as it relates to the JET Data Manager, good, there are some ordered steps, right, that you should go through when building your data warehouse. The first thing you have to do is to identify what are the sources to your database for your data warehouse and your cubes, and by extension, therefore, your project, and how will you connect to this data using one of the pre-built projects from the JET team. I'm able to see for this particular project, when going into business unit, the business unit is the node that is used to identify your data sources as well as to do the first sets of data transformation to move your data into what is called the staging database. I then said for your data sources, you can now connect new additional data sources. And by the way, the amount of data sources that you can connect to is dependent on your license. Good. You can contact us and we'll be able to give you more information on the number of databases that and the types of databases that you're able to connect to based on the license. If you want to connect to a new data source, you can simply right-click the data source node, which is under the business unit, and you have one of two options available to you. You can use either what is called an adapter data source, where in using the adapter data source, good, the application or the JET data manager will automatically pull the necessary tables, the standard tables which are used in building the repository, whether for GP or D365 Business Central or X. Good. And after it does that first data pull, you are able to add additional tables or additional fields, good, to your project. If, however, you want to add additional data sources, rather than using the adapted data source, you simply come to data source here, and then here's where now you would identify. So if I wanted to add another SQL Server data source, so let us say I had data relating to production, but maybe my company, I also used what do you call it, the cards that allow you to record when access control cards. Good. And let us say person's access control, that data was actually stored in some SQL database. Now, you may want to see if there is some relationship between the level of productivity in your organization and the extent to which people are moving around or who has access as they are moving around in the organization. Now, your 365 Business Central or your GP or whatever data would have the production data side of it, but not have information relating to access control. So therefore, you might want to connect to your server, which might be an SQL server, which has all your access control data. So if you were now to click Add SQL Server Data Source, you just simply give it a name and go through the various protocols where you have to identify the name of the server, with the type of authentication, etc. And you click and select the database. Well, I'm not giving a database here because I haven't selected the name of the server. Good. So let's do that. Localhost. Good. So which is local to the machine. And because it's Windows authentication, so it could be that my data is somewhere maybe in one of these other repositories, other databases. So I could select that database. And then now in selecting that database, a node would now show here. So maybe if I call it access control, you'd see access control as a node coming here. And when I highlight the access control, I would see listed in my data selection all my tables and fields that I can select. Good. I would only select the relevant tables and the relevant fields that I need to bring into my project. And once I bring them as a data source, I can do further data cleansing to move to the staging database. So we will close for today. And what I will say is that in our next session, what we will do is actually start from here, where we'll probably go through a quick exercise on how to connect your data tables, probably create a table, and then bring them as a data source, where you will see that the first first level of extraction and data cleansing is actually selecting your relevant tables and fields. And using rules down here, you are able to define how your data is cleansed. And once the data comes in the data source, what additional cleansing and extraction and transformation that will now be necessary to move it from the data source into what is called your staging database. And once we reach to the staging database, we'll be now moving on to the creating of the data warehouse and the cubes. So we're going to end it today for today's session. Again, I'd like to say I know that your time is very, very limited, as I'm seeing quite a few some names here that I do recognize. So I just want to say, a big shout out, Normandy Francis, really great to see you. And for those who I don't know, let me just want to say thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. And I know that you could have spent your time, and also to Otis, right? Welcome, sir. You could have spent your time elsewhere, but you chose to spend it with us. So we really appreciate it. And I hope, as I said, and I aim to deliver, and I have not failed it, we will make this thing very interesting and exciting for you. So again, thanks again. And please feel free to reach out to the Optimus team. Please feel free. Yes, Norman, great hi to you too. Please feel free to reach out to the Optimus team, as we'd be more than willing to assist. Thank you, Sir Joshua. All the best for 2022, and Naphtali. All right, so have a good evening or good morning, whichever part of the woods you are. Have a good day. Bless you.